Good morning. This is exciting because it's my first tea break chat as a fully self-employed woman. As you may have gathered, last Friday was my last day at my job, and now this is my job. Eek! Also, I'm noticing my hair is a bit slicked back. I went for my COVID booster this morning, and it is raining cats and dogs out there. So this is my attempt to do something with my hair to keep it back, but it's a bit wet. But COVID booster done, out of the way, flu jab done, so I better not be getting sick this winter. Anyway, okay, so here we are. Happy Wednesday. Yeah, like I said, it's my first week self-employed, but there's like a gajillion things I could talk about right now. It's been a big week. So finishing my job where I'd been for almost 7 years, and I've been in the corporate accounting world for 12 years, that was big, and it brought lots of big feelings. And, you know, if you're following my stories, you'll have seen some of that, and I put a bit up on post. But really, the biggest thing has just been this intense sense of pride and I've been basking in my own amazingness, basically, which I know can sound super big-headed, but it's been such a cool time because all this time, I thought I was good at my job, that I did a job, I was good at it, and people were grateful for that. But actually hearing the impact that I've made at work and on the people's lives at work, and the wider impact has been so cool to hear. And what people have been saying about me, it's not just people are saying nice things because I'm leaving. It's been really kind of understanding what legacy I've left behind. I'm also noticing I've got steam in front of my face. I've been since Friday, several days last week, but Friday really is the last day when people made leaving speeches. I've just been basking in this feeling of knowing that all the work I've been putting into who I am and how I show up in the world is noticed, is recognized, is felt by other people. For example, what's a good example of one? The speech from my CFO, so my big boss, it started off as a funny, it was a joking speech, but also very much with a serious undertone to it, which is totally his style. And he had started off by, kind of joking, but saying, Lindsey is mostly admired by people. And I was like, yeah, okay. And he said, somewhat liked by people. And I was like, yeah, okay. And he said, but she's always trusted. And that always trusted bit, it really had me thinking about how, so if that's, if that's the trade-off of liked versus trusted, I would 100% choose trusted any day, no qualms. And I was noticing how the fact that, and because this has come up a few times as I've been getting ready to leave, people joking about people not liking me or not being super well liked at work. And it's somewhat a joke and somewhat not. And honestly, the coolest part has been how I've felt about that. So in the past, when I was absolutely terrified of people not liking me, and especially I can remember specifically starting this job with this company, and whenever people were talking in an office with the door closed, I was sure they were talking about me, and that it would have been something bad, and I was trying to do everything to make people like me. And really it was just backfiring, because then I was being awkward and inauthentic, and people weren't liking me, but I was also not super thrilled with how I was acting. Whereas flash forward to now, and when people talk about when my bosses are joking about one of them, when I was planning the leaving party and how many people were going to come, one of the guys had said, well, let's be honest, Lindsey, you've upset half the people out there, so most of them aren't going to come anyway. And I was like, how rude. Yeah, actually, you're probably right. But the thing is, it didn't bother me. And the reason I'm saying this isn't because I'm sitting here being isn't it great nobody likes me? Because that's not true. people do like me. But the thing that is so cool is to recognize is that I'm not caught up in trying to make everyone else happy. There's no way that you can. I have long since given up on that, clearly. And to really recognize by all these people saying this, that like I really do like embody the idea that I am not for everybody. Not everybody is going to like me. There's quite a lot of people at work who I'm not their favorite person. And I'm okay with that. Because the people who do like me really like me. Like the people who get me, and the people who, have actually connected with me and know who I am and what I'm about, they really do. And I would always much rather have the people who have that close connection, who understand who I truly am and like me for that, than bend over backwards trying to make loads of people like me, then it's never gonna work, and I'm just gonna feel awful, and they're not gonna feel great about it, and it's just been such a cool realization of that. And equally, like I said, if I had to make a trade-off, which I'm not saying you always have to, but if I had to make a trade-off between liked and trusted, if the flip side was, like, everybody in the office loves me, like, everyone's like, oh my gosh, Lindsey is so cool, I absolutely love her, but nobody actually trusted me for anything, well, that feels icky and awful. Like, I don't want to be liked but not trusted, because I know some people like that, and I've worked with some people like that, and that's not what I stand for at all. So to hear that it's the other way, that actually people know that I stand with integrity. They know that what I say they can trust. They know that if I say it, I mean it, and that I will live up to it. If I don't have, hundreds of best friends as a result of it, but I've got hundreds of people who trust me and respect me, 100% I'll take that. So that's a big thing that's happened in the past week or so, is kind of just soaking in that realization that how people think of me is how I want to be thought of and how I like that. The other cool thing that's happened this week, and on a similar theme of like recognizing my own power and impact, is this photo shoot I did yesterday. So you guys, wait until these pictures come out. They are going to be amazing. They're going to be very different than anything I've shared before, or anything I've done before. But the big thing that, I went into this shoot going, right, this shoot is to show the level up. This is my first one, fully self-employed. We're leveling up here. And it's really, these pictures are about the lessons that I've been learning this whole time. But the biggest one lately that I've really been pulling in and really soaking into is that your truest, biggest power comes from integrating all parts of you and not having a pocket of you that's there in that setting and a different version of you over there and this other pocket there, and feeling like you have to separate these different parts of your lives and you can only be that way in one setting or another, or somebody has to give you permission to be that or whatever. But really pulling together all of you and knowing that you get to be your full, complex, nuanced, complicated self all the time, and that these different parts of you are not mutually exclusive, but actually all make up who you are. Pulling all those pieces together for me has been absolutely game-changing. And that's what this photo shoot is meant to do, is to show that. And so a big piece for me, and again, if you've kind of been watching these for a while, you know that sometimes I talk about my journey with sex and how that's evolved over time. And that I used to feel that good girls don't have sex and they don't enjoy it. And it was this really big, scary thing for me. And I've shared how that's that feeling has evolved for me over time, and it's still something that I'm working on. I think will be forever, because all of these things that we work on continue forever. But so in this photo shoot, I am wearing lace and lingerie and velvet stuff and stuff out on the street in Leeds that I'm gonna have pictures of and I'm gonna share on my social media. And that doesn't need to be hidden away in some big awful thing. And I can't, and it would have been before that I was afraid that like I can't be a good girl if I'm wearing anything remotely suggestively sexy. People won't take me seriously if I'm doing that, or like, or I can either be, another one for me is like I can be a mom and a really good mom, or I can be a sexy grown-up woman, but I can't be both at the same time. And this, what I was doing yesterday for me was really to prove otherwise, because that is what I've been fully pulling together, is that actually you get to be all parts of you all the time. So I stood in the center of Leeds wearing lingerie, and what I would never ever have done before. And then the other really cool part, so I started this by talking about like the impact that I make. And I know that like the other women on the shoot with me, because this is one of the mini branding shoots that Natasha does, where she's got, there were 4 of us there yesterday, so 4 of us having our pictures taken at the same time, like your individual photo, but you do one person, then the next, and the next, and you go to another location and do each of your photos there. But so for them, like to feel this energy in me, this like, this is who I am, this is me, like, here we go. I know that they were just like, oh my God, Lindsey, this is so amazing to watch. Like, this is so cool. Natasha, who's done my photos since my very first photo shoot, she just could not get over it. She's like, I mean, this is all, like, Lindsey, you're still Lindsey, but the transformation from Lindsey last summer to now is so real. Like, she just could not get over this, like, level up that she has witnessed. And it was so much fun. And it was just really, really cool to really embrace that. And also another cool part was there was this delivery driver who pulled up. It was probably like 60-year-old man or something like that, and was like just dropping off something at the block of flats across the street. And he was like, at this point I was still in like a button-down shirt and blazer, but obviously posing for the camera, and he was like, oh, work it. Not in a gross way, but just in this like kind of fun way. And so we're giggling. I was like, oh, he has no idea what he's in for next. And then sure enough, I start to like unbutton my shirt, and he's now like kind of trying not to look, but clearly looking. And we had a good giggle about like, what people are seeing. But anyway, so I then finished and went to go get coffee for everybody. And apparently while I was gone, he came over and was talking to the other women about me, and going like, oh, I really wish that she was still here, because I wanted to tell her like just how amazing it was, and how brave and vulnerable and like powerful, and like how much, I admire her for doing that. And the cool part about this is, it's not about people giving me that feedback that like, oh, Lindsey, you're so powerful, but it's about them feeling this impact and feeling that power and going, oh, I can have that too. And like that, there's something so magnetic about people like fully owning their power. And then it's about giving everybody else permission to do that too, which is why, spoiler alert, I do what I do and why I'm doing this, because I want all of you to have that exact same feeling of like just totally owning your power and going, and I'm not saying that you all want to walk around in, streets of Leeds in your lingerie. Like, that's not for everybody. I didn't think it was for me, and it's not going to be on an everyday basis, but there was a purpose to this one. But it's feeling like you could if you wanted to. It's feeling like you get to do whatever you want and live the life that you lead, and you know that if there are any haters or naysayers, they're not going to take you down. And it's really just feeling fully in your power. And that is what I want for all of you. Okay, I knew I was going to launch into a long bit about that. Let me try and I'm going to come back to the questions now, because I've got 2 really good questions this week. So let me just have a quick drink. Okay, so the first question that I had this week was about suggestions for how to build intimacy with your partner, not just sex. And this one's a really good one. And I mean, I say that every week, don't I? We've got really good questions, because they are all really good questions. And also every time I know I say like, I'll try and answer this, but I can go into so much more. That's the nature of these quick little snippets, isn't it? Okay, so building intimacy with your partner. So I always think back to my coach Chelsea talks about the intimacy pyramid. And she says that it starts with like the foundational layer is intimacy with yourself. That's why I am calling myself an intimacy coach. It's not just sexual intimacy, because you've got intimacy with yourself, then the next layer is intimacy with other people, and then the top layer is sexual intimacy. So that intimacy pyramid has 3 layers: intimacy with self, intimacy with others, and intimacy with sexual intimacy. And they each build on each other. So intimacy with self comes first, and that is everything that we talk about in terms of really, not being afraid to look into yourself and get comfortable and question, when something upsets you, questioning why, trying to heal these past wounds and all this stuff. And I've talked about that lots, and I can talk about it more. But once you've got that down, and I know that is something that I am working with this person on who asked the question. So once you've got intimacy with self, and sorry, when I say that they build on each other, that doesn't mean that you ever nail intimacy with self, tick, done. Now you can move on to the next layer of getting intimate with somebody else, and then you can move on to getting sexually intimate. They're not levels that you complete like a video game, and you don't ever so you never finish a level. But what I'm saying is that the strongest foundation is you really get solid at one foundational level, then you move up, and then you move up, and they each build on each other, but as a kind of continuous thing, if that makes sense. So intimacy with somebody else, with a partner, that comes through the same sort of skills that you use for the intimacy with self. So that comes from being willing to be vulnerable with somebody else, being willing to really show them who you truly are, and to, how does Brene say it? Brene Brown talks about a strong back, soft front. It's about removing your armor from your heart, removing your armor and letting people truly see who you are, and being willing to be vulnerable, because you can get hurt by exposing your true self to somebody else. You are opening yourself up for, well, what if they don't like me? What if they, they change their mind and they leave, or anything else? But that's where, as she says, the strong back, soft front comes from, is you've still got the strong back. You've still got that feeling that you've got yourself. You know that even if this intimacy with another person doesn't pan out, you've got yourself, and that's that foundational level. This isn't really helpful suggestions, is it? Sorry. let me try and come back to the suggestions. So it's being willing, like I said, to be vulnerable, to show your true self. It's some suggestions, I would say. So then, sitting down and having real conversations about anything meaningful to you. And honestly, there's so particularly if you are in a partnership and you've been together for a long time, it might feel I don't quite know what to talk about. We just talk about, the kids in our day and work and kind of transactional stuff. And if that's the case, I do suggest, so just have a Google about questions to get to know each other. I know there's one set of questions. It was something like 30 questions to make you fall in love. And it was this experiment that was done about whether this set of increasingly intimate questions can make two strangers fall in love with each other. And I'm not saying you do it on that front. And like I said, if it's with your husband or your partner, then clearly that's not where you're at. But this list of questions was really interesting, to get to know people on a different level. So something like that. So Google some questions to get to know somebody better, and sit and talk things through and be open and real with the answers. Other ways to build intimacy with your partner is, if you haven't done the love languages quiz, I definitely suggest you both do the love languages quiz and understand both what your own is and what your partner's is. So the 5 love languages. And because you might have the same, you might have very different, but understanding your own and understanding your partner's can be really, really useful. So for example, if your partner's love language is physical touch and yours isn't, you might not have noticed that actually what they're desperate for is just a simple holding your hand, or instead of sitting on 2 different couches, sit next to each other on the couch and, be leaning on each other, have your legs crossed over his legs, just touching in some way might make a difference. It could be, so another love language is quality time. So maybe one of your love languages is that, and it's just spending time doing something, anything together that you both enjoy, and it's spending that bit of time together. So I think that, The love languages quiz actually is where I would start with. If you haven't done that, I would say that's a great place to start because, like I said, it gives you it lets you identify both yours and your partner's, and then you can go from there and build on what each of your love languages are. Use that to suggest what you do together to build on the intimacy with each other. Okay, then the second question, how much time have I got? Oh, I'm chatting loads today. So the second question was about, what do you do when you feel kind of, I think you said like, when you feel defeatist, when you just feel like giving up and like everything is just like, oh. And surprise, surprise, I'm going to say, that's another big question. And it is. But what I would say, and I did go into a bit more detail, and some of the examples that the person asking this question gave me were like things like, I used to love going to the gym, and I know my head knows I love it, but right now I just can't be asked to go, and like working with my personal trainer, and like just, like I think we all recognize this feeling where things just get to be like, oh, and that they're little things, but then they feel like big things, and then they all pile on top of each other, and just like, I just don't wanna. I'm sure we can all recognize that feeling to some extent. And so what do you do when that happens? And the answers, I mean, there's loads, but first of all is you don't give up. You make the decision. So we do run out of motivation sometimes. Of like when you first sign up for the gym, it's like I'm super motivated to go and do this, and I can't wait to I'm gonna go every day, and you're all like on this high of motivation, and then that fades, and what you need to be left with is the determination to make a difference, and the determination to make that choice every day or every 2 days or however often you go to the gym or whatever it is that you're working on, but to decide what it is that your future self wants. To me, that's how I do it. It's not about what I want right now. And Amy, if you're watching this, write down, because I know I just told you what I want, but it would make me feel better right now. I was having a conversation, she said, what would your future self think? And I was like, it's not about that, it's what I want right now. I was joking. But the question, it's not about what you want right here, right now, all the time, which I know can be contradictory because I often say, check in with yourself, find out what you need right here, right now, follow what feels good. And I do mean that. But I also, when it's something like this where you're like, I'm just losing the motivation, what would future self want best? What is the highest version of you who knows what's absolutely best for you? What would make you the happiest? And then take the step in that direction. Take that step. Sometimes that does mean skipping a gym session every once in a while. I'm not saying that can't ever happen. Sometimes you're like just utterly exhausted, and the thing that you need most of all is to actually sit home and rest, and that's fine. But if that's not the case, if it's like, I'm not, totally utterly exhausted, I'm just feeling, like that drain mode, then is your future self going to say, thank you for getting off your ass and going to the gym? Thank you for, making this, instead of having pizza every night, is your future self going to say, thank you for, going out and making a big, awesome, healthy chili and packed full of vegetables and nutrients, and actually that's going to give me a lot more value and oomph in my life. I feel like I'm not being as succinct with this one, but let me just gather my thoughts for 1 second. Okay, so what I am trying to say with this one is that we all have fluctuations in our moods, in our energy, in our general outlook. But the important thing is to think about the longer run and to go, okay, what is it that I am trying to achieve? How do I want to feel in the long run? And what is something that I can do to help get me closer to that feeling? Because I totally understand that, I just want to sit here and wallow feeling. But I know that's not how I want to feel long term. Sometimes I give myself a little bit of indulgence to sit and wallow in that feeling, but then you snap out of it and go, okay, this is not how I want to feel forever. So what's one thing I can do right now to help get me a little bit closer to how I want to feel? And when you've done that, And it's not going to get you all the way to that end feeling, but when you've done that, then you ask that question again. What's one thing I can do to get me that little bit closer to how I want to feel? And you keep doing that, you keep doing that, you keep doing that. And it's a continuous decision-making process. It's a continuous, like, choosing your hard, basically. So I always come back to choosing your hard. And it might be that getting up and doing that thing that's going to make you feel better feels hard right now. And I'm not saying it's not. But also doesn't sitting there feeling awful about all the things that are going on and that you feel awful about. That feels hard too. So which of those hards do you want to choose? And it's making that decision over and over and over. So I think I want to wrap it up there. Unless there's anything else. Nope, I think that's it. So, as always, I will say that if you've got any comments, questions, concerns, want to join in the conversation on any of this, let me know in the comments or send me a message, and I would love to keep chatting about it. If any of this brings anything up for you and you want to go into it in more detail privately, then we can absolutely do that. So at the moment, I've got one-to-one sessions, single sessions available for £155. I've got mini package of 3 sessions for $444, or the big 3-month all-inclusive, which gets Voxer messaging support in between for $2,000. That will start in November. So when we get back from our 2 weeks in Wisconsin, yay! So a 3-month package would start in November, but you can start paying now so you can spread out the payments. And also, if you do sign up before we go, you can get your messaging support can start early. Totally just lost my train of thought there. So those are the options if you want to go into any of that deeper. Otherwise, yeah, please, if anybody that you know that you think would be interested in this, tag them, share it, send it to them, let people know that I'm doing this and that we've got these weekly free resources and that there's a chance to dive in deeper. And I would love, love, love if you shared it. I think that's it. So yeah, if there's anything else, let me know. And otherwise, I will talk to you same time next week. And I'll put up the question box as always. And yeah, chat to you later. Mwah.